Welcome to Headphone News, International Edition for Monday, March 31st, 2025.
Strengthening trade ties in East Asia. South Korea, China, and Japan are boosting their trade relationships during their first economic talks in 5 years, held in Seoul. This meeting comes in response to recent U.S. tariffs, including a hefty 25% tax on cars and auto parts announced by President Donald Trump, which has raised concerns for the car manufacturing sectors in these countries. The trade ministers agreed to pursue a free trade agreement to enhance regional and global trade. They also emphasized the importance of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, which aims to lower trade barriers among its 15 member countries. Additionally, they revisited historical trade negotiations from 2012 and discussed ongoing issues like territorial conflicts and Japan's release of wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear power plant. The next meeting will take place in Japan, where discussions on trade cooperation will continue.
China's state-owned banks raise billions for stability. 4 of China's largest state-owned banks are gearing up to raise an impressive 520 billion Chinese yuan, roughly $71.6 billion, by selling shares to investors, including the Chinese Ministry of Finance. This initiative aims to boost their essential funds, which are vital for maintaining stability and lending capacity. The Bank of China plans to secure up to 165 billion yuan, while China Construction Bank targets 105 billion yuan. The Bank of Communications aims for 120 billion yuan, and the Postal Savings Bank of China seeks to raise 130 billion yuan. The Finance Ministry's involvement highlights the government's commitment to supporting these banks during challenging economic times, including a slowing growth rate and issues in the property market. Analysts are urging swift action to replenish these major banks to enhance lending and address problems with asset quality. The Chinese government has set an economic growth target of around 5% for the year, maintaining the same goal as last year.
Bolsonaro faces trial for alleged coup attempt. Former President Jair Bolsonaro of Brazil is on trial for allegedly trying to overthrow the government after losing the 2022 presidential election. The Supreme Federal Court ruled on March 26, 2025, that he incited a failed uprising on January 8, 2023, when thousands of his supporters stormed key government buildings in protest against the election results. In June 2023, the Superior Electoral Court found him guilty of abusing his power by spreading false claims about Brazil's voting system, resulting in a ban from holding office until 2030. Despite these challenges, Bolsonaro intends to run again in the 2026 election. In February 2025, he was charged with leading a crime group aimed at undermining democracy, which he denies. The political atmosphere in Brazil is tense, with supporters rallying in his defense. On March 16, 2025, thousands protested for those jailed during the uprising. Meanwhile, Bolsonaro's son, Eduardo, has moved to the United States to gather support for his father. The outcome of this trial could have serious consequences for Brazil's democracy and political stability.
Strengthening U.S.-Japan military ties. On March 30, 2025, U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Japanese Minister of Defense Gen Nakatani met in Tokyo to forge stronger military ties amid rising tensions with China. Hegseth highlighted their shared values and commitment to regional security, especially concerning increasing Chinese military activities around Taiwan. With about 50,000 U.S. military personnel stationed in Japan, this presence is crucial for deterring potential threats. The leaders discussed working together to create advanced weapons, including AMRAAM air-to-air missiles and SM-6 surface-to-air defense missiles, to enhance their defense capabilities. This meeting also comes in light of former President Donald Trump's criticisms of the U.S.-Japan security alliance and his recent 25% tariff on auto imports, which could impact economic relations. Overall, these discussions reflect a broader strategy to strengthen alliances in Asia and ensure both nations are ready to counter aggressive actions from China.
South Korea's manufacturing boom. South Korea's manufacturing sector is thriving, with factory output jumping an impressive 7% in February 2025. This surge far exceeded experts' expectations of just a 2% increase. Following a 1% rise in industrial production from January, this marks a strong recovery after a previous decline. The growth is fueled by government actions to boost the economy and a revival in global demand. This positive trend signals a broader economic recovery in South Korea, especially after the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. As factory output rises, it creates new job opportunities and enhances living conditions. This key economic indicator highlights the health of the manufacturing sector and its vital role in both domestic and international trade.
Trump's ambitious bid for a third term. Could Donald Trump really run for president again at 82? In a recent interview with NBC News, he expressed a serious desire to seek a third presidential term, despite the U.S. Constitution's 22nd Amendment, which limits presidents to 2 terms. Trump insisted, "No, I am not joking," while acknowledging it might be too early to make such a move. The 22nd Amendment was established to prevent any president from serving more than 2 terms, a response to Franklin D. Roosevelt's extraordinary 4 terms before his death in 1945. Steve Bannon, a close advisor to Trump, believes discussions are ongoing about how to work within these constitutional rules. This potential candidacy raises significant questions about the future of U.S. politics and the Republican Party.
Japan's FSA takes action on crypto assets. Japan's financial services agency, known as the FSA, is making a significant move by planning to officially recognize crypto assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum as financial products. This decision comes as cryptocurrencies continue to gain popularity and the need for investor protection grows. The FSA intends to introduce rules against insider trading to ensure fair practices in the market. A bill is expected to be presented to the Japanese parliament by 2026, marking a major shift in how crypto assets are regulated in Japan. This could reshape the global cryptocurrency landscape and pave the way for wider acceptance of digital currencies. What does this mean for the future of investing in cryptocurrencies? Stay tuned as we explore the impact of these changes.
Ron Johnson pushes for spending cuts to support Trump's agenda. Ron Johnson, the Republican senator from Wisconsin, is urging bold spending cuts to advance Donald Trump's tax cuts and immigration agenda in the U.S. Senate. He insists that these cuts must exceed the $2 trillion target set by the House of Representatives. With federal spending projected to hit $7 trillion this year, Johnson advocates for reducing it to $4.4 trillion, a level not seen since 2019. Republicans hold a narrow 53 to 47 majority in the Senate, requiring at least 50 votes to pass any agenda. However, there's a split among Republican senators on how deep the cuts should go. Some, like Johnson, are calling for significant reductions, while others want to protect vital programs like Medicaid. For Trump's agenda to succeed, both the House and Senate need to agree on a budget plan, allowing them to sidestep potential Democratic pushback. Johnson's stance could complicate the efforts of Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who is working to pass a revised version of the House plan soon.
Impact of Trump's tariff on imported cars. On March 30, 2025, President Trump announced a hefty 25% tax on imported vehicles, aiming to shield the U.S. auto industry from foreign competition. This move could hit working-class families hard, as most affordable new cars are made overseas, especially in Mexico, South Korea, and Japan. With the average price of a new vehicle nearing $50,000, finding cars under $30,000 is becoming a challenge. A recent review found only 16 models below that price, with Toyota's Corolla being the only one assembled in the U.S. Experts warn that these tariffs might push prices even higher, making new cars out of reach for many. About half of voters with household incomes under $50,000 supported Trump in the last election, and they could feel the biggest impact from these rising costs.
Macron calls for ceasefire in Gaza. French President Emmanuel Macron has urged Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to implement an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. He emphasized the urgent need to stop the attacks so that essential humanitarian aid can reach those in desperate need. Macron reaffirmed France's commitment to securing the release of all hostages and ensuring Israel's safety. He also highlighted the importance of a peace plan that envisions two states living side by side. Additionally, Macron stressed the need for a strong oversight system to restore Lebanon's independence. The situation in Gaza is heartbreaking, with families facing severe shortages of food, medical supplies, and basic necessities. What will it take for lasting peace in the region?
Trump sets deadline for TikTok sale amid security concerns. President Donald Trump has announced an April 5 deadline for the sale of TikTok, the popular app used by 170 million Americans. This decision comes as concerns grow over national security, with officials fearing that TikTok's Chinese parent company ByteDance could access sensitive information about American users. A law passed in 2024 requires ByteDance to sell TikTok by January 19, 2025, or face a potential ban in the U.S. Trump highlighted strong interest from buyers, including the private equity firm Blackstone, which is considering a minority investment in TikTok's U.S. operations. As the deadline approaches, Trump indicated he might extend it if no agreement is reached, acknowledging China's important role in the negotiations. He even suggested easing tariffs to help finalize the deal. The outcome could significantly impact millions of TikTok users and advertisers, as well as the future of foreign tech companies in America.
Global markets react to tariff announcements. Global markets saw a dramatic drop on March 31, 2025, after U.S. President Donald Trump announced new tariffs affecting nearly all countries, raising fears of a global trade war. Investors rushed to safer options like government bonds and the Japanese yen, valued at about $0.0067, while gold prices soared to record highs. In Japan, the Nikkei index fell by 3.6%, hitting a 6-month low, with automaker stocks particularly hard hit by concerns over a proposed 25% tariff on imported cars. The MSCI index for Asia-Pacific, excluding Japan, dropped by 1.2%, and Chinese blue-chip stocks fell by 0.3% after a survey showed only a slight uptick in manufacturing activity. Ajay Rajadhaksha, head of rates markets at Barclays, expressed serious worries about the economic conditions, warning that rising trade tensions could lead to a recession in major economies. This situation highlights how interconnected our global markets are and the potential fallout from these trade policies.
That is all the news for today. Thank you for listening to today's Headphone News. News summary brought to you by AI.